And a very good evening to you, and welcome to today's edition of Politics 101. It's Tuesday, the second day of the so-called working week. I say so-called because these days people work, people always work every day, but we're accustomed to Monday through Friday in Guyana. So we talk about the work week. Welcome. Yesterday was Pagua. And so the faithful and those who are not so faithful had a good time. It was a public holiday and saw people all over Guyana playing Pagua. And it has become traditional to a large extent. People who are Hindus and non-Hindus do participate in the Pagua ceremonies. So welcome to those of you who are joining us from Guyana. Happy belated Pagua. And those of you who are joining us from outside of Guyana, welcome to Politics 101. Some of you are joining us from as far as the United Kingdom. It's night there. Good night to you. Good night to you. And tonight we have Dr. Jeffrey. Dr. Jeffrey is going to be on, and we are going to be talking about those hearings before the United Nations Human Rights Committee last week. Quite a stir. And we're going to be talking with Dr. Jeffrey about that. Dr. Jeffrey's column this weekend, which originates in the Village Voice, from communism to autocracy, is the way he framed his discussion of those of that hearing, and we are going to be talking to him about that. So we come on here tonight. We have visitors to Guyana. Last week we had the spy chief of the United States, the head of the CIA, visited Guyana, and then Bill Clinton, who needs no introduction, he visited, and I think he may still be there. Today's what, Tuesday? Yes, he is addressing the Dominican Republic Chamber of Commerce today, Tuesday. So he's there. And then the French foreign minister, he is visiting. And the French have said that they would open embassy in Guyana. So lots of high-profile visitors. And as we've been saying on this program over and over again, let us not fool ourselves. Those of you in the United States will say, let us not kid ourselves. We are in the big league. We have to get accustomed to these visitors, these high-profile visitors coming. We were a little bit slow in understanding what it means. Professor Thomas was on here yesterday, and he said that we're not just the fastest growing economy in the world, we're the fastest growing petrol state. And not just the fastest growing petrol state, but the fastest growing petrol state of all times. That his research has shown that none of the petrol states has taken off as quickly as Guyana has taken off. We're not yet even 5 years. 5 years, December is going to be the 5 years anniversary, and already we see where the economy is going in terms of the measurements. And we have seen that once we admit the fact that we are a petrol state, we are the fastest growing petrol, then it's even more important for the government to be held accountable. It's even more important for us to have the kind of scrutiny that the committee, the United Nations committee, put the government under last week, because we are in the big league now. Welcome to those of you who are joining us, wherever you're joining us from. Welcome to Politics 101. We see the government announcing today that it has contracted a company to recruit 500 nurses to come to Guyana. Wow. Well, we know our nurses have been crying out, as public servants have been crying out for better wages and salaries, and the government has not been heeding those cries, and lots of nurses have left. They've gone to Canada and Britain and the United States, and we, during the budget debate, I think in the Minister of Health did point out that there is a severe shortage of nurses at the Georgetown Hospital and other public hospitals. The fact is that the government will say, well, we have a shortage, so we have to recruit nurses. I understand that we have already recruited some from Cuba and now Bangladesh. They're recruiting 500 nurses from Bangladesh. And the government would say, well, you know, we have a shortage, so we have to recruit. But the problem goes deeper than that. It is, we have a shortage, not because we are not training enough nurses, and this came from the Minister of Health himself, but because our nurses are leaving and going to other places, and they're in search of better wages. And we are in a position now to pay them better wages, and the government has refused to do that. So here we are. If you bring in nurses from outside of Guyana, you know, you have all kinds of allowances. You can't bring them and pay them bad wages. You have to give them a package. And usually those packages include things like transportation, housing, allowance, and all those things. So the money that they're spending on recruit, and you have to pay the firm, pay the company that's doing the recruiting for you. So the money that they're spending on bringing 500 nurses, they could put that money to pay the nurses better wages and salaries. You will keep them. And if you're paying good wages, good salaries, young people are going to go into the nursing profession. But here we are. They're recruiting nurses. My God. Dr. Hines, would you invite Patrick Yard to say something about this? I've been trying to get Patrick to come on to this program, but I've not been able to get him on. But I will pursue, Denise. I will pursue. Marcia is saying the government bring nurses from Indian Bangladesh because they want them to vote PPP so they could stay in power. No, this comment by Marcia is instructive, whether it is true or not. If you are the government in a ethnically divided society such as ours, you have to be sensitive, and you have to know that you are going to get these kinds of responses from African Guyanese. You must know that. So it is not whether what Marcia is saying is true. It is the perception and that the government seems not to care about how it is perceived. Welcome to all of you. Welcome to the PPP is a racist group of vagabonds. How can you not expect that you're going to get this kind of response or these kinds of responses? We are, I was talking to somebody who is high up in the PPP about the discussion they're having over Jagan and whether, Jagan Marxism and communism and so on. And I was saying to the person that you all are walking right into the trap that Rafi Dev and them are setting for you. Jagan was a working class leader, there's no doubt about that. But he was also an ethnic leader in the sense that East Indians looked to him as their ethnic leader. Why can't you be both? Why? He was a working class leader and an ethnic leader. I went into many homes, many Indian Guyanese homes in the days when the WPA was very active in the Indian community. And you would see Jagan pictured there with the Hindu deity, Jagan, and sometimes they would have Mahatma Gandhi. That was standard in Indian homes. So Jagan was and Jagan dealt with ethnicity, Forbidden Freedom. If you read Forbidden Freedom, he talks about Indians being second-class citizens. He sent a petition in 1963, I think, to the United Nations, and he repeated that accusations that Indians were being treated as second-class citizens. And in 1988, he was invited by the same Rafi Dev and them to New York to speak before GOPIO, the global Indian people's organization that they have there. And he spoke about the plight of Indians in Guyana. So it is not true that Jagan did not deal with the issue of race. He did. And nothing is wrong with that, because Indian people look to him to defend them not just as working people, but to defend them, as Indians too. And, so the Jaganites are trying to say, well, Jagan was about race. He wasn't about race, he was about the working class and so on. And then Rafi Dev and them are saying he was just about the working class, he wasn't about race, and both of them are lying. Both sides are lying. Both sides are lying. Of course, the Rafi Dev group are really interested in justifying the present PPP, which is into a kind of Indian triumphalism, Indian domination, among other things. And they're mixing that Indian domination thing with capitalism, whatever you call it. So the Rafi Dev group are saying that these boys now, they're right and Jagan was wrong. We love Jagan, they're saying, but he was wrong. These boys are now right, But anyhow, welcome to Politics 101. I think it's about that time. Let me bring in Jeffrey here, because Jeffrey's more versed on these matters than I am. Dr. Jeffrey, good evening.
Good evening, David. Good to see you again, and your audience, of course, for having me.
Always a pleasure. And you started off your column this week with your column, of course, From Communism to Autocracy. And you say here in that column, the PPP government has had an abysmal record of dealing with issues that have to do with democratic renewal. And perhaps this helps to explain why at the first appropriate public opportunity afforded it, after Vice President and General Secretary of the PPP, Bharat Jagdeo at Babujan, threatened the political opponents of his party with dire consequence as the country proceeds to the 2025 general and regional elections. During discussion in Guyana at the 140th session of the United Nations Human Rights Committee, the United States Representative Professor Elfer of New York engaged in a most forceful questioning of the PPP government. I want you to expand on the first part of that statement. The PPP government has had an abysmal record of dealing with issues having to do with democratic renewal. Please explain.
Yes. David, if you read the first paragraph there,
Yes.
well, when I spoke essentially that the PVP, I said essentially that the PVP is falling today, is falling into the same trap as Jagan of yesteryear. At that point, Jagan held on to being a communist when the West was saying all of this is wrong. We need open democratic society and all of that. Today, when the struggle is between democracy and autocracy, remember then the struggle was between communism and essentially Western liberal capitalism. PPP went with communism. Today, when the major struggle in the world today is about democracy and autocracy, the PPP seemed to be tying its bundle with autocratic governments. That is where it is at. So effectively, what I'm saying, and what are the hallmarks of autocratic government? Hallmarks is always threatening the opposition, not competing with them, threatening the opposition. They go out there and said, oh, I've been quiet, but we are going to come up, and all you getting involved and all of that. Threatening the opposition is one. The second thing is an important element. Look at all autocratic regimes. They go after the opposition, threaten the opposition, and then they control the judiciary. They want to control the judiciary. After 17 years, to this day, you cannot have the head of the judiciary, the two senior people in the judiciary. They have to look over their shoulders when you're making decisions. Today, essentially, when you, let's say, look at America. When you appoint a judge, it's for life. Because people shouldn't have to look after the liberal democratic state is based upon the freedom of the judiciary. It's the administration, the legislation, and the judiciary. They check and balance each other. The government of Guyana already controls the executive and the legislature, because with one seat, they can do anything they want. One seat majority, maybe not even a whole seat if you could look at it seriously. They can do what they want. And then now they have tremendous influence over the judiciary by not appointing people permanently to that position. So effectively, once they start to attack the opposition, and then it is well known that for 17 years, you can't come up with some way of dealing with the judiciary if you're a real democratic government. The Americans stood back and says, what we have here in this era, and you cannot have it in our backyard. You cannot have another autocratic government in our backyard. What we need in our backyard are democratic governments. The result is that they, at the UN Human Rights Committee, took on the government on these kinds of important issues. Where is the democracy if the central pillar, one of the central pillar in that democracy must be the freedom of the judiciary? You have some people that have been acting position that you can do with whatsoever you like for 17 years. What kind of, and we are in a struggle, major struggle, that the West is saying this, between autocracy. We have Chavez over there a problem. Ghana is becoming a problem. That is what I essentially meant, that they have this problem. The PPP wants to rule and rule alone. You were mentioning Ravi Dev and that lot just now. But if you realize what is happening there is that they are saying it's all right to have for parties to represent ethnic groups. That's great, that's great. But they must represent them in a winner-take-all situation.
Yeah.
That's what they're saying. They must represent, and it doesn't matter if the winner-takes-all situation is autocratic. So what do? They're pointing you to Singapore and places like that. Singapore, when the Americans held their Democratic Conference last year, I think last year, Singapore was not invited, largely because it's an autocratic state. But that is what they want. They are saying essentially, we today in the papers, you want to call themselves an electoral democracy. Well, that's really putting it maybe plainly what we are. All we do is have elections, and when we win, we do what we like. We are the elector, but we have seen and we know that everybody, Putin have elections and win. Maybe more fairly than the PPP can win an election in Guyana. But who's running to go and live in Russia? Is the person doing that? Where's the soft power, which is perhaps one of the best way of judging how people view countries? So essentially, that was my position, that the PPP wants to rule alone. In our kind of situation, it cannot rule alone. It cannot. You know, and you said there are two issues about what took place at the committee, at the Human Rights Committee. And I am tying these things together with the people coming here. Clinton, Blair, they're coming here is a sign that the time has come. Constitutional reform must come, and the PPP must deal with the issue of ethnicity, upfront ethnicity and governance. Let me tell you, Clinton coming there is not a joke. As you know, that I don't know what when they get together, what they will be speaking about, because he'll meet government people. I mean, the DR meeting might be one thing, but he's going to meet government people. And Clinton used Biden, because he was a senator then, as a central pillar in getting the Good Friday agreement on stake in 1998. And who was the Prime Minister of Britain at the time? Tony Blair.
Tony Blair, yes.
All right, it could all be coincidence. It's all about that. It's Tony Blair who was there at the time. And Clinton had this to say about the Good Friday Agreement, was done by George Mitchell and ex-secretary. Clinton says, The Good Friday, and he was speaking to it at the 20th anniversary in 2018. We can talk a lot about that later. But he had this to say. The Good Friday Agreement called for real democracy. And what is real democracy? Majority rule, minority rights, individual rights, the rule of law, the end of violence, shared political decision making, and shared economic benefits. That is what he defined. And if you look around Guyana, you don't find that here today. You got a government that can get up tomorrow with 1 seat majority and do what it likes. He went on to say, the most interesting thing was that by creating a space for the identity, interest, and values of all the people involved, it was a work of surpassing genius. And that is the center. You have to be able, you can't be running a country and determine that you are not going to have collective bargaining. And you are an ethnic party, essentially. That's what you are. But remember, this Ghana has nothing what we talk about. That's why they can go now and call themselves what? Elected democracy. Well, we see them all over the world. Elective democracy is not necessarily good. Elective democracy is not. Democracy, yes, is a central pillar, is majority rule, but elective democracy is only that. It does not include the other things. It doesn't have the moral values of a democracy. As I said, Putin can win, Modi can win elections, but you have to have other things. And it's the other things that make a democracy good. And now I see, because for one reason or another, they have put it in press, they are elected democracy. Like if there's a good thing in itself, you have to have the moral values of that. And Clinton state what those moral values are. You have to look after minority rights. You have to have decision making that reflects the views of everyone. And I don't agree with you when you say, these people are terrible people, or the person that make the comment, the people are like this. People is not like that. The Constitution allow them to be like that.
Yeah.
You're not like that. Which Constitution can do? You cannot, in our context of an ethnic 50-50 division society almost, you cannot have one single party doing what they like. You have to put them together, and that is what the Good Friday Agreement does. The Good Friday Agreement says, you are the majority, you can be the president, you can be the chief minister, but the man with the other thing, he'll be the deputy chief minister, and you're all going to have a cabinet and sit on there and make decisions together. That is what is essential for you to having a democracy like in an ethnically conflictual society like ours. So, David, that's what more or less I meant. And I'm not. Remember, it's 1998 when they was writing, when the Good Friday Agreement was signed. We were doing a constitution in 2001. And we put it as a majoritarian constitution and say it's the best in the world. Constitutions are must be fit for their purpose.
Yeah.
You can have a majoritarian constitution in Barbados. It might not worry nobody about it. Or Jamaica, but as things are changing, you're even getting
yes.
Here. So effectively, but you got it in an ethnic divided country where per capita more people might have died as a result of ethnic conflict than in Northern Ireland. Because if you worried, some of the numbers they're showing like 2,000 some hundred people die in this country, and we only got per capita, we only 1 million people. They got nearly 2 million people, and they have 3,600 people die in that conflict in that period. So I'm saying to you that we have to, and I'm not, I'm saying nothing about the PNC and the short-lived government in that period, because it's nothing to shout about, because that they seem to have, I shouldn't say because you were there too. But the point is, I mean, they didn't understand what they were doing. They didn't understand the country. And I think I said in the article, Hoyt waited years.
Yeah.
Years, and he must be the most cosmopolitan of them. He live all over the place. He was. Every other leader in Guyana just live on the border and Jagga, and when they go abroad to study, they only go in some army camp. It is just as autocratic, or they go to some Soviet country. That is part of the dilemma. So I don't necessarily blame the PPP. Some of the things the PNC do myself, how can I possibly blame the PPP? It's the arrangement that allows them to behave that way. And they're coming up now with all sort of things. Small parties can help. Imagine, you get one small party, and look what happened already with this small party. But even so, this small party end up in one seat. You get this party to come with you, and you can suppress the whole Indian or black people one way or another, because they would claim it's the same thing happened for a couple of years with the AFC. They would claim a whole lot of things happened out there that day. And they're right. They are a central part of this country, and they must have a seat at the table. This is not an homogeneous society where you can just talk about majority rule. Because there's the essential feature, David, of governance, of democratic government. James Stuart Mill said it how long? Since 1861. He said you must have a united public opinion. You ain't got no united public. You got Indian opinion, you got African opinion. If one person says something, the other, you do not have a united public opinion. And if you do not have that, you can't have what we call homogeneous kinds of democracy in Ghana.
Dr. Henry Jeffrey here with the opening salvo. Those of you who would like to read his full column, it's been scrolled at the bottom of the screen there. You can find it on my website, and you can get it at the bottom of the screen there. I assure you, it makes a good reading. As I said, you can get it there. On my website at Dr. David Hines, GuyanaPolitics101.com, Dr. David Hines, GuyanaPolitics101.com. It's been scrolled to the bottom of the screen there, and you can, it's hot stuff. It's hot stuff. It's attracting a lot of hits. And so those of you who have not read the full column yet, you can get it there. Dr. Jeffrey, you used the whole notion of communism to autocracy as the kind of backdrop, as you've been explaining, for understanding the kind of grilling that the PPP got from the United Nations Committee. And you made a couple of observations. The first observation you made is that the PPP representative seemed very unprepared. Why? Why was she unprepared?
Yeah, but I also said that that's not how this, by my understanding.
Yes.
These people send you a list of the questions they will be asking.
Yes.
Right. And then you send them back lists, and then they can even do all sort of supplementary for you to get there. I'm not going to make anything here, but I've got a feeling, as I said, that she was caught by surprise.
Yes.
I mean, because that's the only way she can be in that mood, because you got to come good. I know that today I'm reading some man talking about democracy like picking mango from a tree. But they can get in that nonsense about the majority rule and who rule. And you can get there. But the point is that I am saying it appears to me that like she was caught by surprise, because certainly you can answer in a better way. And I would suggest that it's after the president start attack the people at Babujan, that people say, I might be wrong, but it's just that I'm saying, because it's the traits of autocratic government. And in this era, when the West is struggling between democracy and autocracy, they don't want an autocratic government on this region, and certainly not a baby country like Ghana. Ghana might be growing, but Guyana oil is petty to Venezuela. It's petty. It might, yes, it's growing, might be the fastest growing, but the fastest growing in the context that oil is on its way out too. And therefore, everybody wants to get the bit out of it. So that's all right. What I'm saying here is that the West got to win the struggle for democracy in this. It's like they had to get rid of communism in the old days. And the PPP is a humbug again. The PPP is a humbug because it does not want to have real democracy, as Clinton I read from Clinton. That is real democracy, and it is possible. It's not that it's impossible. And therefore, PPP is a humbug.
They're a humbug, but they're a humbug in a different era from when Jagan was a humbug. And
but the pressure will still be on.
Yeah. And that's what I'm saying. They're a humbug in the period where we got oil. And compared with others, it's not a lot. But geopolitically, economically, and so on, we are now even more strategic from the standpoint of the West.
Oh, yeah. You got Ukraine and all of that, and you need oil and all that. Yeah. But I'm going to tell you, you can't have too many autocratic governments in the region where the chief struggle for democracy exists. And there's no way it should exist in Guyana. And they've already done their thing on numerous fronts to see that they do happen in Guyana. I'm almost certain of it. So effectively, that is the point I was trying to make.
You're trying to make. And the composition of the committee, as you pointed out in the column, there are 15 independent people picked by the government.
Yes. But I mean, hell fun is, man, you see them, you see the type of people that you got there. And I did one and two others. These are serious people for the business. The men, all the years they spent doing these things to get to that standard, writing 200 articles, refereed articles, not articles, Village Vice or Kaito, refereed by your peers. And then you're going to tell them it's work, or suggesting it's work on the PNC. They're not going to do nothing like that for just work on the PNC. And they got 18 or 17 others right there. They sit down and they know what's going on in Guyana. Don't think you're going to fool anybody. If you look around from the contracts and everything, what we need badly in this country, all of this thing can stop. Have an ethnic disparity study. How long we have that been saying? They want to call it what they like. They're now saying an ethnic impact. I don't care what they call it, but it must show in the PPP time, in their time in government, how wealth has been distributed and what can be done to deal with it and change that situation for the future. Let them do that. Australia did it. Singapore begging for it, but of course, Lee Kuan Yew's like them. You ain't gonna do nothing like that. So, and now Lee Kuan Yew, they have USREF is there, And Britain did it. ethnic disparity analysis. But we'll close off an objective now. I'm not going to get a couple people from Freedom House and do no analysis or come and say, they must do it. They got the money to do it, as you just said. Don't call me and say, oh, bring the numbers. I ain't have to bring any numbers. You are the government of Guyana. People have serious concerns about your how equitable they are treated. You should go and do it. You have resources. The British don't do it when they're 75% a homogeneous kind of a country. Australia doing it. Why can't you go and get it? When as part of the Party G committee, we were talking to the State Department. I raised this point. The people said they're willing. The State Department said they're willing to help to get that analysis. The PPP issue, it's imperative that they do it. This got nothing to do with any state government. Do a proper international assessment of how wealth has been shared in Guyana, and the thing can close off right there. It can close off in any case, because even if they were doing this for 15 years, giving you 5%, telling you got 5% for the year, but giving you at the end of the year and 5% must mean 3%, and all that nonsense. No, what I am saying to you is it needs to be done to see how wealth has been distributed deliberately so in Guyana. And then we can put in place things to go on and do. I've been saying that for the longest while. I say to the Ethnic Relations Committee that is a couple of years ago, that is something you should get done. And then we can move on. At least we'll got some numbers, proper numbers, objective numbers, not coming from the government or the PNC or opposition or the Jeffries of this world, but something you can live with. You remember the government went and they appoint the IRI, the International Republic Institute,
yes,
to help them. Where are they gone? They gone with constitutional reform. And what did they do? They ain't gonna get Guyana-Caribbean to check the people of Guyana and say what they think about the government and democracy. Only about 20% of the people say they can say for certain that the government is a democratic government. And they're talking about, let me be real. The way the whole thing is going on, too many people are involved not to know. And the result is when serious people ask them questions and I give away to tell the truth, they say, no, I can't. 20% and they're talking about re-elections. You got 5,000 people votes. The CARICOM group says they found, when you recount, 5,000 should not have been voting. And don't tell me it's new to Guyana. Mauritius, I think, had the same situation. And the court threw out the matter. The court says, no, the election must go. So don't tell me it can't happen. So much people can't vote and you can't see them and all this sort of nonsense you hear. So effectively, and I'm not saying it's a PPP alone rigged election. I think this is a nationwide thing. But what I am saying is that we need to quell these things, have a democracy in the real sense, not only from the moral standpoint, but even if you want to call yourself an electoral democracy, call it on the real numbers, not the false numbers. And that is precisely what we have in Guyana. It's a mess.
It's a mess. Jeffrey, I want to take you back to what I think is the headline from tonight's program, and that is that the PPP has become a humbug again. And I want to ask you two questions in related to that assessment. The first question is, do you think the opposition, and I'm talking about the formal opposition, do you think the formal opposition has grasped where this country is at the moment in relation to that conclusion that you have drawn?
I can't say for certain if they have. Remember, I can't say for certain. I know that everything was out there for them to see where they are going with this. And everything, well, not what I done, other people have been saying should allow them. I don't know if they understand it. They're talking about winning the election, but you can't win elections like the land, do the same thing.
Yeah.
You know, we will win. When you win now, you want to go in and run the country better than the PPP. Who would believe you? PPP gonna be telling their people on the ground all the time is lie, you're doing this. We go through the same thing. So I don't know. I must hope so, because if you look at what's going on, it's quite clear that effectively this can't continue.
Yeah.
PPP can't continue like this. And it's for you to position yourself to be part of a process. Don't try to say you want to be everything in the process. You must position yourself to be part of that process. And whether or not I would not be saying, I don't know. I know Mr. Norton. I know at one point at time he was in for this kind of a thing, but I don't know at the moment. I don't know. I can't say.
Don't know the moment. Dr. Henry Jeffrey here tonight. Those of you who have not read his most recent column, you can do so. From communism to autocracy, it's a very, very good read, and I think it sets up an understanding of where our country is at the moment and the framing in that he uses there to explain the PPP's attitude to democratic renewal and the democratic process. You can get it there on our website, Dr.David Hines, Guyana-Politics101.com. Dr. David Hines, Guyana-Politics101.com. Dr. Jeffrey, the second question I want to ask you, in relation to what we see coming out of the hearings. Clearly, those people are going to compile their reports and so on and so forth. But as you've concluded, the PPP has become humbug. What next? What next?
Just what, in my view, I have no information on anything, but you're going to be hard pressed to tell me that Guyana is a country like Northern Ireland. Biden, who is president, Clinton, who was president, who used Biden at the time because he was part of the Irish group in America. Blair, who was the prime minister, all come here and not going to be interested in ISU, when indeed Guyana is a humbug in terms of democracy. The Human Rights Commission come out and tell them they're a humbug in terms of a democracy. So that's all I can say. I would find it strange. I mean that. Yeah, all right. It all could be just a coincidence, and I don't think so. That's not a coincidence. It's just, and the French people and all them, the French, if you read the European Commission report on election, it looked like they sort of, somebody appoint them like the point man on Guyana. Somebody appointed them because when it's their report outside the Carter Center. I don't know that America put out any report or anywhere. They put out the report for the European Union and spoke a lot about the elections and all that and what needs to be done and which population can grow exponentially.
I completely agree with you. I do not think that in a week you got a U.S. CIA chief Bill Clinton, the French foreign minister, coming here, it's not coincidence. We've been around politics a long
Right.
time. We have written on politics, observed politics to know that these things, they don't happen just like that. That it's really a signal that is being sent. Jeffrey, we weren't down to speak about this, but the Venezuelans seem to have torn up the Argyle agreement.
But David, come on. All right. Here again, it depends on what you thought the Venezuelan, if you believe the Venezuela was ever going to invade Guyana. The Venezuelans are using this thing for election. Until that election is finished, they're going to find something to do to keep the people who think they've got to find things to do. Imagine what that thing said. It, you know what that law is a law, or I mean, I don't know if the
It's a
preamble.
law.
Yeah, but I don't know what said what I'm going to say to you. It said something to the effect that all this will come about when we have an agreement with Guyana.
Yeah.
You pass a law, or even your voice in the notion that here all of this depends upon us having an agreement with Guyana of all people. I mean, you know, that points to the fact that they are saying they ain't turning up no Argyle agreement because all this head depend upon they coming and get off it with you. But Maduro will have to keep finding new things to make those who believe that he's coming to Guyana believe it. And he'll have to do it until the elections. So look out for something else coming. He can't do it once and then just go home. Everybody will say, oh, sir, you know, he fooled me for truth. The next thing, he got to keep this ball rolling until the elections finish. So, no, I don't think up in ante. And then I said they depend on me to agree to the ante. You up in ante to take away my country. I said, it all depends on me. We meet an agreement on it. Joke.
What you thought of the government's response?
But the government response, I think, is fine. Because regardless of what you may think and I may think, because we ain't have no facts, government got to have in place things to deal with it if it happens. You know, I can always say, oh, Maduro ain't doing nothing. But the government can't say behave like me. They might think so too, but they can't behave like me. They got to have things in place to deal with issue if perchance the man serious, because we are speculating here. But the government can't only live on the speculation. They have to have things in place, and I hope that they do have things in place. You said it, all sort of people are coming here. I hope they're speaking to them properly, and of course they're going to tell them about democracy, and they don't want that of Venezuela over here, you know. And
Dr. Henry Jeffrey here tonight on a Tuesday night on Politics 101. I like to, you all are out in numbers tonight, big numbers tonight. And of course, that is always good to keep the conversation going. I did say last week that based on calls I get for interviews across the region and in the United States of America, and then you ask people, well, how did you get in touch with me? And a lot of them would point to Politics 101, which means that we have on these programs people who we don't know are on, but they're here, and these programs are really playing the role. So it's very important that, as one journalist told me, that it's very important that when they come on, they see hundreds of people are live on these programs, and they are amazed at the kind of political involvement of people via these what are no longer just simply social media programs, because I think they've gone beyond the narrow confines of social media. So I would like to thank you all for keeping this show and similar shows alive, because it's part of the process of democratizing our country, because that's where, as Dr. Jeffrey has said, I mean, that's where the struggle in the world is, between autocracy and democracy. And it's not like in the old days when the left would call democracy bourgeois democracy and so on and so forth. We have gone past that. I mean, we are where things are today. Dr. Jeffrey, the teachers walked out of the meeting after the government flouted the agreement. They first said they're going to go from 2019. Then they came back the next day and said we no longer going to 2019. The union walked out. The matter now is back in court. What says thou?
First of all, the mere fact that the teachers, first of all, let me say, I think Justice Kisun did a good job. Mm-hmm. In the context of his analysis of the Guyanese situation. So anything I say is not really a critique of that, because all of us can have our own opinions about different things. But for me, the minute you had a teacher strike and nobody want to come to on a strike, and particularly in Guyana where you can be discriminated against and so on, nobody wants to come out. That was already set that this thing break down. It was already broken down. What has happened is that it's now has only broken down formally, in the sense after you went to the court. It was broken down. The judge could just as well have said, gentlemen, here, this thing broken down. Now here what happened. The next step in that is conciliation by way of the Trade Union Act. You find a conciliator, agree on a conciliator. If you can't, I will find one, and you will sit down and conciliate. And if that breaks down, gentlemen and ladies, we are going to arbitration. Story done. Just follow the process. But now it breaks down. I think you got to go there, no matter how you diddle now, because effectively you can't send them back to any other thing. You got to go now to conciliation proper, according to the trade union rules. And if they can't if you can't agree there, you go to compulsory arbitration. That is how I would think it must properly go. But we will have to live and see. But it was quite clear to me that the PPP don't want, and that's an important element in the striving for dominance, pay you what you like, do what you like, as I said just now. Do anything that's important element, especially for African Guyanese people, because they work for the government. Therefore, they can do what they want. They can tell you, oh, you have 5% increase from January, but we can give you in December. And people take it because they said that's part of it. They want to give you that, like, give you a bonus, your own money that they were supposed to give you whole year. So effectively, that is where I'm seeing this going. This gonna end up at conciliation and then at arbitration. I'm going to tell you why I think I was Minister of Labor. And I offered them last day about this, I passed. But the union don't have, and I'm saying this as I would have sat down as minister and think it through. The union don't have, unless they get what they want, they shouldn't have any interest in not going for arbitration. because they would have gone to the end of the collective bargaining process, and nobody can blame them for anything. They said, we've struggled, we fought, this is the end, whatever we got there, particularly if the government, and they'll do it, if the government don't come seriously and try to meet some of their demands. They would have no good reason to say, I agree to this. It's better they go to arbitration and the arbitrator say, well, that's what we're going to get. The members are going to go down and run down and blame them all over the place. So the regime should have enough sense to say, hey, you got to make these people some way. Unless they think they can find an arbitrator. Because I think according to their rules, it says something to the effect, their collective agreement, it says something to the effect that the minister, at the end of the day, the minister can choose the chairman. No. So we got to see how that goes. But the teachers have a right to strike. They have a right to, they have done it. And let's see where it would go.
Let's see where it will go. Dr. Jeffrey, and you raised the alarm before many of us, and when you began to discuss the whole issue of domination as a central pillar of the modus operandi of this government. And you were correct, you are correct. But why? Clearly, you have intelligent people in the PPP, whatever you think about them and so on. You know, clearly you have intelligent people. Why are they picking so many fights? You're picking fights with teachers. You're picking fights with nurses. Now you're bringing in nurses rather than address the wages. Why?
Because dominance, ethnic dominance is a funny thing. Remember when Ravi and them talk about J-Gun, they form parties to get Indian away from J-Gun.
Mm-hmm.
You remember all of them that talking there, more or less. They formed their own little party just to get anyways. To form from Balaram thing right down. But J-Gun keep them there. So as you started by saying, the Indian has been attuned to be frightened of the PPP. They have been attuned far much more than the PNC African people, because after all, they were in government.
Yeah.
So, and after Jagan was in power for all those years, he had nothing else to keep them with. He had all of these chaps coming to try to racialize him, but he was on the ground. And somebody said, I can't remember, but Jagan was a hard worker. You go in all them villages, you see them at the bottom house. I go on campaign with Jagan even in 1992, and he says, Henry, we go in this room. I said, where are we sleeping, Chief? He said, I got a friend. I said, oh. So this is when one government yet we're talking about the election for 1999 campaign every day. Yeah. And so Bartik, I think he said, I got a friend, man. We gonna put up with a friend. I said, okay. So we go, the friend got one bed and he got a hammer. So I said, I'm the younger chap in the hammer. So Jenny says, he said, what are you doing in there? I said, no, I cannot get Chief. I can sleep in here. He said, man, you ever sleep in a hammock? You don't know anything. I sleep in a hammock. I said, but you know, he said, no. Come on. Cherry Jagan was that kind of eating all over the place. He going on the bottom house. He gone. I was telling a friend last night, when we were supposed to go to the World Social Summit, me and Cherry alone, you know, then he introduced Asgar, and Asgar left we in New York, say, because he put we all in economy class. And we start saying, you know, I tell him, I said, Chief, I don't travel in economy class, right? Not only on your own thing, you know. I used to do that in student days and all. So he said, all right, let me do it this time. So we got, you know, Cherry Jagan When we are not planning to go, so where are we going to say, Chief? You got some friend somewhere. When the time come close to go in, Chetty Jagan's friend we got my hovercraft how far this valley from the meeting. We got to drive, go to hovercraft. So when he sit down and he said, "Mom, we got book, we got to find a hotel." By which time, guess what? It's the only place you can find a hotel is in the best hotel in Copenhagen. The Copenhagen itself. All the big wigs there. The money is so much. All of them. Castro, Clinton, Hillary was there. I met Dr. the thing. But the point is, all of them stayed in the same hotel because that was the big wig hotel. Cherry Jacob, because he trying to not spend, end up spending the most. Well, not the most, at the best place, in the place. So, you know, Cherry Jacob was a different class. And he wasn't a racist, but yeah, you recognize that race, he got to keep a group together here. And race was what he had. Neither he or Janet were racist, but they know that's what they had on the ground. Now, that's what going to come back to haunt the party because he might be racist, but he going to create a whole lot of ethnicities on the ground.
Yes.
A whole lot of them. Now, that's what you have, and it is a serious situation in terms of, and once one ethnic group behave, another one going to behave, and so on. That's why we have a situation in which it demands a different form of government. We do not have a united public opinion in Guyana. You can't get one ethnic group running the other one. It's just not on cards.
Yes, yes. And the point about one group operating this way and the other group responding, you're so correct. My elder Guyana told me that he spoke on the PNC platform the night before the 1964 election, and they had gotten word that some of the red-skin tongue Africans were inclined to vote for the UF. And he was invited on the platform. And he said, "Red nigger, black nigger, all same nigger." I said, "Guyana, you actually said that?" He said, "Yes, quote me." making the point that the politics of race is real.
Yes. Yes, it's no use you fool yourself and then gonna get one ethnic group trying to run the other. It's not gonna work.
Yes.
They're gonna undermine you on the other side all the time.
Yes. And so Chetty, I agree with you that Chetty was attuned to the importance of ethnicity to his survival. And I think Donald and Clement and them are, trying to cover that down.
Yes. And they need not, they need not. Why is that cover? I don't cover it down, and I think I was a good friend of Chetty. I don't see where you go cover it down. It's reality. It's the reality of his situation. People say, "Oh, come back and he start this and he start that." But if you are going to derob in me, because that is essentially what the British and they were doing, will you expect me to come back asleep? I'm going to use what I have to do and try to shake things up. That's what he did. So I don't. But that's what that time. As I told you, you listen to what Clinton said. He said it in 1998. We are writing a constitution in 2000 and still didn't get it yet. We put the constitution straight into a majoritarian mode. And when we try to get out of the majoritarian mode, we say we got to come to agreement on things without making a tiebreaker.
Without making a tiebreaker. Dr. Henry Jeffrey here tonight, and as usual, we are walking our way through a number of these issues and trying to put them in perspective. Dr. Jeffrey, Guyana took what many consider to be the right stand on the issue that went before the Security Committee vis-a-vis what's happening in the Gaza. And Guyana took a very progressive position. What's your thoughts on that?
Well, first of all, when you get voted in as a member in there, it's not your position alone.
Right.
It's a whole lot of group that come to make you that representative them. So it's not like you go in there and say what this is alone. Like Guyana's position represents a whole lot of Caribbean people there who had to make God thing. It is the correct stand, yes. That said, it is a correct stand. But you know what Biden once said when he was Deputy Obama? He said if they want to Israel, we'd have to invent one.
Yes. Yes.
You know why he said? Because he's in a region at that time particularly where there was nobody pretending to be democratic. The vast majority of these people. And so the Israelis, and this is a point, I wrote on it, so it's nothing. I said the Israelis deserve a state all by themselves from what they went through since God knows when. Since 1066, they're throwing them off in the river and all sort of thing and throwing them in England and all those other places. It's not surprising that it's the English that forced that, encouraging them to get a homeland on their own because they went through hell, Just like how we talk about slavery, where it's 1066, this is not no 14, and these people been going through hell. And they want a state that they are in total control of. In terms of democratic theory, it doesn't wash, but every theory got get some exceptions given the history of the situation. And I think that the West fell down badly. They encouraged people to go to those lands. They made it so that they take away all the Palestinian lands. Years ago, they're doing this since after the Second World War. And they always putting it aside. I know it's troublesome. I'm not saying I don't know it's troublesome to negotiate. But the point is that they must start and complete this journey. You can't get what's going on there. And Netanyahu, he get liquor. First of all, he was the Israeli army was so great if you heard about what he used to say. And then suddenly you have some old Palestinian cross the thing and cause mayhem. So now we think that's going to make the bad. It's not. I think Netanyahu would have to go if you call the election after. He can't pull that back by killing all these people and this wildness that's going on there. And therefore, the thing is good. But as I said, you have to look at it on all sides. Yes, you should stop that nonsense there. And I think you're going to pay for that anyway. And but we got to get a state for the Israeli that they have complete control over.
Dr. Henry Jeffrey, thank you very much for coming through again, and I will see you in 2 weeks' time.
Thank you very much, David, and thank you very much for your audience.
Thank you very much. And for those of you who would like to read Dr. Jeffrey's recent column, you can get it on our website, Dr. David Hinds, GuyanaPolitics101.com. Dr. That's Dr. David Hinds, GuyanaPolitics.com, all one word. And you can get Dr. Jeffrey's column there and other news stories on the website. While I'm at it, please follow us on our Facebook pages, Politics 101 with Dr. David Hinds, and Hinds'Sight with Dr. David Hines. Those are our two Facebook pages. And we also have two YouTube channels, Politics 101 with Dr. David Hines and Hinds'Sight with Dr. David Hines. And of course, you can check out our website, Dr. David Hines, Guyana Politics 101.com. I'll see you all tomorrow. I think, I know we are likely to have Pastor Nigel London on tomorrow. Can't remember who else is going to be on tomorrow. But we are going to be here tomorrow, same time, same channel. And of course, we continue to do our work. See you all tomorrow.